Welcome back to the HyphenatEdD Leader podcast. I'm Dr. Rochelle Smarr, and this is season 2, Leading from the Margins to the Center. You're about to enter Voices from the Huddle, a special series within this season where we will pull up a chair with EdD holders, scholars, practitioners who are reimagining leadership within and beyond the university. These are colleagues that I deeply admire, people who are navigating complex, hyphenated journeys across all educational spectrums, their personal lives, and are really intentionally working beyond the academy. Each conversation you'll hear is a real dialogue, sometimes virtual, sometimes in person, centered on leadership practices, their identity, and multiple hyphens that we all carry. These aren't polished keynote speeches, so buckle up, buttercup. They're honest, vulnerable conversations where we talk about what it means to lead from the margins to the center. I'm excited to welcome this multi-hyphenated leader to the conversation, so please join me for today's staff huddle. So Dr. Watkins, thank you so much for joining me on the HyphenatEdD Leader podcast. It is a joy to be in person with you having this conversation. And so do me a favor and introduce yourself to the audience and your preferred hyphens.
All right. I am Dr. Shanelle Watkins, educator, coach, mom, soror, and just, a Black girl.
A Black girl. Black girl magic all the way. How do these identities of coach, mom, soror, just Black girl magic, how do they show up in your leadership style on the day-to-day basis?
It's very funny. I think one approach that I use a lot, even now, is the other mothering concept. And I think the reason why I do that is because I had my son when I was in undergrad. Mm-hmm. So I kind of learned how to mom as I was navigating through my career as well.
Right.
And so I always brought that approach with me. And now, I remember once someone sat me down and was like, that could be offensive to others. But I think now the way that the other mothering comes out, it's in very intentional ways and distinctive ways. So it's not, because I'm not trying to be your mama, but I care for you and your growth, right?
Mm-hmm. It's authentic.
It's
not forced on them.
Yes, absolutely. And so that shows up a lot. And I'm going to ask you why you ain't got no coat on. Right.
As you should.
So that comes up a lot. And then the coaching piece. So that is an identity that I just recently stepped into. Mm-hmm. But as I've been doing it, I'm like, I've been doing this all along because I've always been a mentor, advisor, all throughout my career. Yeah. So now just being a coach and getting paid for it, yes. I'm like, okay, I can show people how to do things, right? Mm-hmm. And I was at the beginning of my master's program, I was in the school counseling program. Then I switched over to higher ed leadership. And then I did, in that program, I took a few coaching classes too, because it was something I was considering because I didn't want to be a therapist. And then I was kind of over being a counselor. So coaching felt like the right lane for me.
Okay.
And so I do a lot of that even, in my work now with people who report to me or with students, and that I feel like it just comes natural to me. Yeah. Which is funny because throughout my career, I was always the one who needed the coaching. And now I'm like, look at me. So
giving it back.
Right.
Full circle.
Yes, absolutely. So, very, very pleased and grateful to be able to do that. And then just being a Black girl, I feel like, and I know I'm a woman, a Black woman. Mm-hmm. But my Blackness shows up in everything that I do.
And I love
my
that
Black
about
womanhood.
You. I love it. You're just so unapologetically a Black woman. It's authentic. It just radiates out of you. Just the smile and everything. I'm just going to move the mic down so we can see your beautiful face.
Oh.
As well. So good. Yeah. So the title of the podcast is HyphenatEdD Leader, and I created it so we could create a space for educational doctorates.
Yes.
Tell us why you chose the EdD over the PhD for your terminal degree.
So when it was time for me to select a program, the ones that appealed to me most were EdD. But I had to sit down, being a first gen student, I had to sit down and be like, what does this even mean, right? Mm-hmm. And so, with the Doctor of Education, it's more practitioner focused. And as much as I do love the research piece, I couldn't be out of work for 5 years. No, I'm not even going to hold you, right? Mm-hmm. And my career spans all the way back to 2010. It's been in every aspect of education. So K-12, I worked in special education. I worked with the AVID program, community college, now 4-year college, public university, private university. And so it was just a perfect fit for me because, and then even as a student, I've been to all these different types of institutions too. So that was a better approach for me. But I have found myself being eager to do more research.
Really? You're not burned out from you want PTSD from the
right? I'm still like, I want to know more.
That's a good thing.
And so all the things that I was putting aside during my process saying, a good dissertation is a done dissertation. Well, now the dissertation is done, so bring these ideas back.
Right. I got time now.
Right, I got time. Yeah. And then also, I teach in the leadership studies minor at USD. So I'm like, ooh, this is kind of cool. Maybe I should have gotten a PhD. But it was more so just like my lifestyle and what I was interested in. It just fell more into that EDD side. And, sometimes people be sleeping on us, but like,
they do.
We really know our stuff.
We do.
We absolutely do.
We fast-tracked research from the day one in our program. We were doing the research.
Yes.
Drafting the dissertation.
No breaks.
No breaks. You went full-fledged. July, a break, it was a joke. So,
no, it really was, because it wasn't really a break.
It wasn't. We were still working. So you're just about a year since you graduated. What fruits of your labor of being an EDD have you seen so far? As much as I've been wanting to launch Leading While Becoming, I think earning that doctorate was really the green light for me. Like, go now, girl, you're a doctor. Like, can't nobody tell you nothing. A whole doctor.
Like, you're a whole doctor. A big doctor, right? And so I think it was that. And I feel like I'm still Shanelle, until it's time to be Dr. Shanelle, then I'm gonna put that hat on. But I prefer to be called doctor, and some folks are like, you Shanelle to me. And one thing I noticed is I think at UCSD, which is the R1 institution, they kind of expect you to be a doctor anyways, right? So that's why I feel like people are like, okay, Shanelle, so I'm like, all right, cool, we're all doctors. But I think just, launching this platform has been great. And then also, because I am an expert in what I researched, right. There's lots of folks who are now showing that they're interested in my work.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that very different to see the double takes no more, but oh no, tell me more about your research and your opinion. That's a great expectation.
Yes. And I'm really enjoying it.
Good.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah, I think you should still tell people, doctor.
I'm doctor.
It's in my little title. She, her, doctor.
I know. I love that. I think I copied that somewhere. I was like, I got to do this because
if you don't know what else to say, doctor, and all of a sudden I perk up and I got more I can offer you. So I love that for you. Is there anything you haven't? Well, we're going to talk about leading while becoming near the end of it. But is there anything that you're still hoping that will materialize now that you are the great Dr. Shanelle Watkins?
I feel like when I first wrote my dissertation, I remember it, in the planning stages, I told the directors of the program, I was like, this is going to be something great. I was like, I don't know what it is, but it's going to be something great. Thus far it has birthed Leading While Becoming, but I think it's going to be something even greater. I'm hoping to maybe even one day have my own framework or, something like that. It's going to take time and, a lot more researching, but, that's what I'm waiting for. So maybe another 5-10 years.
A great citation.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Okay, so we were the first to hear it. She's going to get her own framework in a few years.
Right? It's happening. Just wait on it.
Yes, it's happening. So on season 2 of HyphenatEdD Leader, I'm really looking into leading from the margins. And so I'm curious to know your thoughts on why do you think women of color encounter so many challenges to their leadership that forces them to lead from the margins versus being from the center?
Oh, that's a good question. And I've been thinking about that. And of course, I'm going to dial it back to Leading While Becoming. But one of the core reasons why I created it, and I kind of have a baby framework, that I'm kind of creating, and it's called Soft Power Sharp Strategy. And I think, with women of color trying to grow in their careers, like, so we encounter so much trauma that it forces us to harden, right? And when you think about these women of color, specifically Black women who are in these high places, like, it's always like a certain demeanor that they have. And I'm sure you can think of what it looks like, especially when they're different generations than us, right?
Yes.
And I, from my research, from my personal experiences and, things I've observed, it's just because they've been like, they had to harden. So they had to be numb to a lot of things. They had to, I was creating a list of things that I don't like to hear or advice that I don't like to hear with my leadership. And a lot of them were like, just things to make you like, just harden, like, oh, pull up your big girl panties, just put your head down and do your work. Just persevere. Suck it up, like all of those things. Like, dang, can I cry for 5 minutes? Can I just be soft, And even when I am having difficult conversations or giving directives that you don't like, I can still be soft and do that too.
Exactly.
And so I think that's something that has been happening to Black women and women of color for so long, just being pushed to harden. And it's to avoid being, not taken seriously or this person's too soft, like there's no way to win.
Yeah. You're losing on both sides. Either you're too hard or you're too soft. And it's like, but where can I just be in the middle?
Absolutely. And I don't think there's very much opportunities to be in that middle, unless you have, a supervisor like me who's woke. Like, right. But other than that, like it is very challenging. And I think that's something that in all industries, Black women are having to do. And there was another part of the question that you asked that I wanted to answer.
Well, I have another question. I have another one to frame. So at what point in your career did you learn to go from being so hard and leaning into that trauma? Like, what opened you to want to be soft in your own leadership style?
For me, honestly, I think that it was because I feel like I came in soft and then got humbled real quick. And then I had a mentor who was very like, hardened. Don't let them see you sweat, this type of person.
Rigid, okay.
But I think for me, I was like, nah, I'm going to do what I want to do. Like, and, sometimes I'll do what I want to do and I'll fail and I can blame them but myself. But I was like, no, it's these pieces of me that, that gets the results, that contributes to my productivity, that contributes to student success. And I feel like if I abandon those parts of me, like the way that things are going right now for the people that I serve, it's not going to be the same anymore. It's going to change. And so I did kind of go against the grain in that. And I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I chose myself because I will say, when I was very young in my career, it was always like whatever Black woman was like up there doing the greatest thing, I wanted to be just like her. Like, give me the recipe. Every single thing that you did, I want to be just like it. But I started to come into my own becoming and was like, no, like, Shanelle, you're good. Like, you're doing the things and in your own imperfect way. And so just being able to embrace that. And I remember you and I had a conversation once and you were just like, I really love the way that you are, like, I don't know verbatim, but it was like, girl, I love how emotional you are. Right? And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Because it's oftentimes I've been like shamed or ridiculed for that, or it hasn't been seen as like a strategy for leadership.
Right. I think other Black women see it as a threat. And so that's why they try to tamper down your spirit, because I'm thinking about our prior relationship at San Marcos, and I can see that happening to you. And I think that's where that comment for me came. It's like, no, I love you being you, all of you, because we're not that far removed in our age and our gaps, but like I've come up under those Black women who like, no, you've got to be structured and very rigid and seen, but seeing you and seeing your development is like, nah, I should be free to be Dr. Smarr. So absolutely. This is why it encourages me, like, no, you should be authentically yourself in all the spaces.
Yes.
Why are we still code switching?
No, for real, like, because I'm tired.
I'm tired. I just want to be me.
Listen, right?
Through from all the day when I wake up, when I go to sleep, just want to be me.
Yes.
And I think that's what you really, really continue to teach me often. And it's why I have that encouragement to do the podcast, but also like the other spaces that you're starting to grow into is like, oh, if Shanelle can do it, why would I have limitations on my imagination?
Right, girl?
So yeah, I think your leadership is just so authentic and it's inspiring and engaging, and like it encourages people like just try it. Yeah. And like you said before, like you have no one else to blame if you fail. But at least you can say you tried.
Absolutely.
You did it. So
absolutely.
I love that. So what advice would you give to other multi-hyphenated leaders who are teetering this line of like, do I be myself in the workplace or do I leave that separate? How do they find, I don't want to say balance, but how do they find rhythm across their professional and their personal lives?
I think, and this is something that I learned from another Black woman leader that I always look up to, Dr. Ashante Hands, who's the president at Mesa College. And, you know, we can be our authentic selves, but based on those rooms that we're in, we may have to show a different side of our authentic self, right? So like in this space, like, do I bring Southeast Shanelle, or do I bring Shanelle who went to Point Loma High, or do I bring, you know, Shanelle the mom, like what, you know, or Dr. Shanelle, like what shows up, right? And still be yourself in that space. And I think we should all, you know, have the, forget permission, like we should all just be able to do this, right? And another thing I would also suggest is just maintaining those boundaries, right? Setting those boundaries, like, because we need rest. Like Black women are dying at an alarming rate. We need rest. Listen to your body. And, you know, I know we always chasing a bag. We always booked and busy, but like those things don't matter when you are worn out, right? And so, you know, protect your peace and set those boundaries. And like, you know, like I said, with Leading While Becoming, like I only do a coaching circle per quarter. So that way I can preserve myself, you know, and as much as I love this work, I got to know when there's a time to stop, you know, and be present on other things. And so I think that's something that a lot of us, you know, women of color need to do or start practicing, because we're always taught to just keep going, work, get that bag, do this, don't let them see you sweat, pull up your big girl panties. Like, dang, girl,
where do I show the real me?
For real.
Behind your closed doors?
Yeah.
At home? Like.
And by the time I get home, girl, I'm taking off this bra and I'm going to bed. So I don't even have time to be my real self. Bonnet on, right?
Good and tired. Like,
right?
I have nothing left to give myself. Oh.
Absolutely.
Okay, you've been teasing it. So tell us more of how this story, how your organization Leading While Becoming came to be. And how we can maybe get involved in the next cycle.
All right. Okay. So Leading While Becoming, as I shared earlier, was a product of my dissertation. So my dissertation work was on the experiences of Black women student leaders at Hispanic serving institutions. And some of my findings included that these young women, they had learned leadership in different forms, mainly from Black women and their families, from the church, a lot of places that aren't like formal leadership spaces, right? And when they tried to bring that into school, it looked different or it wasn't welcomed. And by the time they got into college, a lot of their leadership positions started to form through, there was some sort of gap that needed to be filled regarding Black people. So there was either, you know, results of what happened to George Floyd, or there was, you know, misrepresentation of Black women in STEM. You know, there was something that was affecting Black people. And so these young women at schools all across the state were like, I'm about to start this because y'all not doing it.
Right. So I'll fill the gap myself.
Yes, absolutely. But as they were doing that work, there were lots of stories of pain and imposter syndrome and questioning themselves and, you know, wondering, where is this going to fit in, you know, after college? How is this going to look? Am I even still a leader? And then they had a lot of exposure and a lot of empowerment from going to conferences where they saw other Black leaders from HBCUs and, you know, are being in sororities and things of that sort.
Thriving and not just surviving.
Yes. And being like, oh my God, you know, but a lot of the times the way that they found out about these conferences was from maybe someone else who was Black on campus or just something they stumbled across. Right. So no one set them up to go on these trips,
directly.
You know. Yes, there was no mentorship. And so, you know, after that, I was like, I want my dissertation to kind of be like a toolkit or something to inform college leaders on how do we nurture and nourish Black women student leaders at Hispanic serving institutions.
Right. To actually take it and actually apply it. That's a practitioner's degree.
And I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to travel to different conferences or different institutions. And I'm going to put together this whole what did I say? An institute, right? I was like, I'm going to put together an institute. I'm going to go to these schools. I'm going to teach them how to do it. Like, it's going to be great.
Yes.
And I finished my dissertation. I was like, all right, where do I start? And so I was like,
got the vision,
right? I was like, Dr. Neufeld,
I'll start with you,
right? And she was like, girl,
where the money is set up,
right? The way our money set up, I don't know.
But she is your number one supporter, and I hope that she'll be on the podcast.
She is lovely. Shout out to Dr. Neufeld. She is a good person for sure. We love us some Ellen around these parts.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, maybe not that, but still in the back of my mind. And so I was like, maybe, and this is how I went into higher ed. I was like, maybe I need to come to the students. But as I was working, in my profession, a lot of other Black women Black women colleagues who are in the same field as me, I've noticed that a lot of them have been unhappy or have not had a lot of support, right?
Mentorship is elusive for a lot of us. So
I was like, okay, so I'm seeing that there's a gap with professionals and there's a gap with student leaders. Yes. So I was like, all right, it's time to start coaching, right? And so using a lot of the tools that I learned from others, i.e. from you, as well as, things from my research and then this like soft power, I was like, okay, I'm going to do one-on-one. But then I was like, I think I want to do some group coaching. And so that's when I started the Becoming Circles. And so like the first cohort that I had that's ending, it's a 6-week cycle. This has been, I have some women who have been in their careers for over 15 years. I have some who are doctoral students. I have some who are master's students. And one of the members is a senior in her undergrad. Okay. And I love the mix. The conversations are rich and it's been good, but I think there's some places where we can dig deeper in different directions. And so that's why for this next cohort, I'm doing college, undergrad, and graduate students.
So they can talk to each other. Be a little collective there.
Yes, because I know a lot of the challenges that they're facing are going to be more related. Although I've noticed that the challenges that some of these women are facing, although they're in different areas of their lives, they are the same, but the way they show up are differently, right? So I'll be able to kind of like dig into that more on a different level with professionals versus students.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's been good. And then, the one-on-one coaching has been good. I've been doing some workshops and speaking.
Good.
In fact, I will be speaking at it is through the 1619 project.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yay!
Yes.
Congratulations.
So I'll be speaking there on March 7th. Yes.
DC? Or
No,
where is it?
It's a local one. So it's in San Diego. Yes.
Okay. Send us the details.
Yes. And then I'll also be on the panel at the Women's Leadership Symposium at Cal State San Marcos.
Yay.
And so, just getting into these rooms where I know that there are,
there's a need for the voice and the representation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then just continuing to empower women. So really excited for that. But my dream for this is to have, and I'm like, I wrote it down. I was like, summer 2027 is coming.
Yes.
I want to have a becoming retreat.
Oh.
So, we invite women, we go to somewhere, maybe a weekend and just do all the great things, right? And pour into our becoming and I was intentional about that name because I've always considered myself a leader, but there were also times where I was like, I don't know if I'm really a leader because of XYZ. And I realized that all of that was still my becoming. Like even now, building this business, I'm still becoming.
Just because you get there doesn't mean you stop learning.
Yes,
and becoming and
absolutely.
Absolutely.
And so that was where I came up with the name. But yeah, I've got big plans for Leading While Becoming. I'm loving the work. Great. It's been great.
That's awesome.
And just to be able to empower and pour into, other women, because it's very much needed.
It is.
It is.
It really is. And I'm so grateful that you are really pursuing this dream like wholeheartedly with so much purpose and passion that there's no end to what it's going to blossom into. And so eventually you will get that institute. Mm-hmm. And we'll just lean on Ellen a little stronger.
Right?
She's going to do it. You're an alum. You just got an article in the News Center. Like, why not, Ellen?
Come on, girl.
We'll drop this in her inbox. But you've got enough supporters. And you gave me a really good idea just in that thought of like, fill the gap where you see the need.
Yes.
And that's what we did in our dissertation. And so I'm grateful you're doing it, and just know that I hope that in a few years you can come back and give us a good update of what you're doing. Because absolutely. This is an excellent start, and the world is your oyster. It's just the start of it all. So thank you so much for joining the podcast and sharing a little bit of your story and just inspiring others. And I just know that so many are going to reach out and connect. So I will be sure to link all the different resources, but share with us how we can stay in touch with you to see you grow in this.
Oh, so right now I have an Instagram, and please listen, give me grace because this is my first time running Instagram for real. So at Leading While Becoming. I also have a website. And then I also have a newsletter, Notes from Dr. Shanelle, that comes out once a month at the beginning of every month. So there is a newsletter sign up on my Instagram. So let's stay connected.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Dr. Watkins, so much for joining the HyphenatEdD Leader podcast, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you for joining us in the huddle today. I hope this conversation gave you something to reflect on, whether it's a new way of thinking about your hyphens, a leadership practice you want to try, or simply a reminder that you're not alone in this work. If this episode resonated with you, share with another multi-hyphenated leader in education, invite them to the next staff huddle. Drop a comment, share a story, or send a topic you'd love to hear more about on either my LinkedIn page or on Substack. You can connect with me on LinkedIn at Rochelle Smarr, or join me on Substack at HyphenatEdDLeader, where I'm sharing more stories, frameworks, and resources from our conversation with the guest speakers from this series, Voices from the Huddle, that are leading into the season 2 theme of leading from the margins to the center. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps other hyphenated leaders find us and join us in the Huddle conversation. Please know that Voices from the Huddle is an evolving and curated space, and I'm always open to new voices. So if you are a hyphenated leader yourself, or you would like to nominate someone whose perspective belongs in this very huddle, I welcome the opportunity to learn more from your story and be able to share it with the community. So be sure to email me, connect with me through a DM on LinkedIn, or a message through the Substack. I'm happy to begin to build the community to recognize and elevate more voices of hyphenated leaders. Let's normalize talking about our experiences, let's support each other, and really build up this hyphenated leader community. So until our next staff huddle, be sure that you continue to lead authentically, keep embracing every hyphen, and have fun as well. So this is the HyphenatEdD Leader podcast, and I am Dr. Smarr. I will see you at the next staff huddle.